Hello and welcome, and yes, I need a haircut, but I'm saving it for Halloween so I can give myself a mohawk. Yeah. What do I talk? I don't know. Today is the 13th day of October. It's 2 o'clock, and it's time once again to explore the long, dark tea time of the soul of role-playing games, or why role-playing games end. And trigger warning! If this is a topic that you find upsetting or disturbing or that might trigger something, the idea of role-playing games dying, the idea of conflicting personalities, the idea of maybe things are not as perfect as you thought they were, please stop viewing this now. Hello and welcome. I'm your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM, with yet another deep dive, exploration, call it what you will, of this idea that games coming to an end. Because games end. Games are ending all the time, especially lately. And that's okay. Things end. But nothing ever truly ends. Science has shown us the basic law of physics is nothing that can be created or destroyed, only rearranged. So nothing ever truly ends as long as we are around to tell its story. But we've been discussing reasons why games might end. Reasons why the games I've run and played might end. Reasons other people's games might end. And in response to a comment that I received from an individual who goes by Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master, this is what this was about. So earlier today, I posted my news of the day. And of course, my news of the day, there was a lot of it that was 5e related. Or not related, and how I try to avoid talking about D&D products like Tasha and Frostmaiden. But so many of the things I talked about were coming out as 5e hacks. And Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master said, yeah, I like D&D 5e, but there are too many awesome settings being released using those rules. I wish there were new and different systems out there that gamers could champion. Oh well, I guess we have no option but to kneel to our 5e overlords. And to that I say, first and foremost, let's just look at the nominees and winners for Game RPG of the Year. Both Ennies, Gamma, Origins, all championed games and nominated games for Game of the Year that were not anything closely related to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition or some hack of 5th edition. The Gamma Ennies Game of the Year, Aliens the Role-Playing Game by Free League Publishing, a D6 system. The runner-up for Gamma Ennies Game of the Year was Mork Borg, which is also a role-playing game that doesn't use the D20 system. And the Oscar winner for Best Game of the Year, according to Origins, and if the Ennies and Gammas are the Golden Globes, the Origins Game of the Year is the Oscar. So the Best Picture, Best Game of the Year went to Teens in Space from Renegade Studios, based upon their award-winning Kids on Bikes game, another system that is not 5e. So there are plenty of games out there that are kicking ass as far as the accolades of the industry are concerned that are not 5e or nowhere near 5e. In fact, stand against 5e. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the reason why games might end, especially recently in game experiences I've had, is trying to make the game system something it's not. And this directly relates to Frustrated Game Master's comment that just we have to bow to the 5e overlord. And we don't have to bow to the 5e overlord because we can vote with our wallets and we can vote with our gaming choices. And too many people try and make, especially I just so often, especially in the last couple of years, I run into this scenario of trying to make 5th edition something it's not. 5th edition is 5th edition. It is what it is, for better or for worse. And 5th edition D&D works as 5th edition D&D. Trying to make it anything other than 5th edition D&D will inevitably fail, and those games will fall apart because you put all your heart and soul and energy in trying to push a square peg in the round hole of making D&D 5th edition something it's not, rather than saying, okay, I have this idea. Is there a system out there that lets me run this idea? Actually taking the 10 minutes it takes to research other games, to go to Drive-Thru RPG, to go to EN World, to go to sites like mine, to look at game systems out there and see if there is a game system that actually addresses your needs instead of trying to hack 5th edition to make it into something it's not. And so many games fail because they're trying to make 5e something it's not. They're even trying to emulate Critical Role, and they can't. And let's face it, Critical Role isn't 5e anymore. It's Matt Mercer's D20 game. The trappings of 5e are barely there. Or they try to make 5e something else. But 5e Dungeons & Dragons is only 5e Dungeons & Dragons. It's only when you make it 5e Dungeons & Dragons does it work. I've been playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons on and off for 5-6 years now, and I have to say, with one exception, I have not actually been I have not actually been in a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game. I have been in games that use the 5th edition system, but they are homebrew worlds, they have homebrew rules, they have homebrew attempts to make it emulate a video game or something they saw on YouTube or another game. They try and take things from other game systems. Look, Monty Cook is trying to convert his Numenaria stuff to 5e in an attempt to try and get more money and try and attract more fans to his product instead of just supporting his product and saying, look, Numenaria, the cipher system stands perfectly on its own. I don't need to kowtow to 5e. This is perfectly fine, and I'm going to support that, and I'm going to push that, I'm going to champion. But he's not. He's saying, oh, well, here's my stuff for 5e. And so many other people are saying, well, I have to bow down to the 5e overlords and just trying to make 5e fit my ideas instead of saying, I have these ideas. Maybe there's something out there that isn't 5e that I can use to emulate ideas. So I've run 3 or 4 games that I have tried to make 5e. Inevitably, somebody tries to do or bring something in that is some weird, obscure rule or something from another game, or try to make something they saw on TV or in a movie or Critical Role or a video game fit into 5e. And as a GM, I see their frustration because they have all these ideas and they have all this energy and they have all this imagination and they have this idea of this concept of something they saw or something they're trying to copy or something they saw in Critical Role or in a video game, and then they come to 5th edition D&D and it's shoop. The perfect example is the game I was in where this guy was trying to constantly hack the system and make the system do things it was not designed to do. And eventually he was just like, I want to build a robot. And both the DM and all the other players are like, there's nothing in 5th edition that lets you just instantly have a robot appear. The closest thing is either a golem or homunculus. Now, if this is something you want, we can work with you. The DM could have worked with him. The DM could have said, okay, I see your idea. You want a little robot, whatever, following you around. There are things in D&D that do the same basic thing. There's homoculuses and golems and clockworks and stuff like that. So the idea could be feasible, but it's not just going to drop in your lap. It's something we're going to have to work on. You're going to have to work through it to either find it or make it. And, we're going to have to create. But no, the guy just wanted it because he saw it or heard it or read it. And he's like, well, 5e is like, 5e doesn't do that. So he table flipped and the game exploded. Every game I've run, inevitably someone tries to bring something in and make it not 5e, or bring in that I saw it on Critical Role, therefore it should work in 5e. And it's like, no, it only works Critical Role, only works on Critical Role. And every game I've played in, I've yet to play in a Forgotten Realms campaign. I've yet to play through any of the published 5th edition product. It's always somebody trying to homebrew, home world, home rec, home make Take 5e and try and make it something else. And that's why these games fail. Don't hack the system. Try and find a system that does what you want to do. Because 5e is 5e. And although I'm talking a lot about 5e, that thought pattern goes for any game. Don't try and make apples oranges. Don't try and fit a round peg into a square hole. If the game you are using does not allow you to tell the story you want to tell, and the only way you think you can tell the story you want to tell is by hacking the rules, by changing the rules, by kowtowing to the 5e overlords, your game is inevitably going to fail because you tried to make it something it's not. Rather, champion the little guy. Realize that there are reasons why games like Teens from Space and Aliens and Tales from the Loop kick ass in the awards shows. Yes, they don't get the big press. Yes, they don't sell like D&D because D&D sells. Because if it's your only choice and it's the only word you ever hear, you don't know that there's anything else. Rather, champion the little guy. Champion the D6 systems. Champion Powered by the Apocalypse. Champion the Year Zero system. Champion Teens from Space. Champion Cypher, champion other systems, champion Savage Worlds, even fucking champions Fate, and say, I have found a system that lets me tell the story I want to tell. It has everything I'm looking for, but it's not D&D. And go from there. Don't hack the system, hack the planet. And that is why games might end. I probably have to answer that, so talk to you later.